Passive House Show, where we discuss all things passive. I'm here today with Jamie from homeprint.io. He's going to explain why he's here and what Homeprint is all about. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mick. Thanks so much for having me today.
No worries, man. No
Great to be
worries.
here.
And we had to get you on the podcast. So tell us what Homeprint's all about.
Yeah, so we're building a platform, Homeprint. Homeprint is essentially a digital wallet and dashboard for your home. So it's the ability for a homeowner to save and store all of their home's information in one place that essentially feeds them insights and recommendations about their property.
Super handy.
Yeah. Today homeowners are keeping their documents and their information in maybe a Google Drive or a folder in their house, and it's probably not the most secure place to store it.
And a stack of paper somewhere.
That's right. That's right. And there's a ton of information there that's super handy to the homeowner, but it gets lost because it's stuck in a PDF document.
So property data.
Property data. That's what we do.
Amazing. Amazing. How did that come about?
Our initial concepts came from being in the industry for the last 20 years. I've spent my last 20 years as a mortgage broker in the real estate space, investing in properties. And, through my career, I've really come to the notion that homeowners are really disorganized and they really do not know anything about their property. So, and then, by owning properties, we realized that we were also disorganized, and how handy would it be to have a tool as a homeowner to really understand and know where all of our stuff is.
We were doing a preliminary chat over the phone yesterday, and you mentioned all of what you're saying right now, and it got me excited because we wanted this conversation to go obviously to sustainability,
Of course.
and having that property data. Can you go a bit more in depth about like what kind of data we're talking about? It's not just the paperwork for the home or whatever's, like the leases you sign, the contracts you sign with gas companies, electric companies, whatever else. What else does it entail?
Of course, yeah. So, one of the things that we've done is really broken down different components of the house, so that you can understand how it's built, when it was built, whether that's the foundation or the windows that have been put in or the roof. So looking at the materials that have been put into the home, when were they put into the home, and also maybe the warranties that might be attached to those materials.
You're talking about a full-on assessment of every component, literal component of the house.
Yeah, we have about 800 different data points of the property so that you could store all of its information.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
And you know exactly what needs to be fixed, what can stay,
Yeah. So, if you look at something like your home systems, your furnace, your air conditioner, your water heater, all of those items, they all have a life cycle. So, understanding when those things might need to be replaced, what sort of maintenance schedules they might require to make sure that it's running smoothly and properly, and also extending the life cycle of that particular system. So these are things today that we don't really understand as a homeowner. We don't have somebody telling us, based on the make, model, serial number that, hey, here's how you should be looking after that particular system in your home.
Have you seen anybody apply it to a purchase of a home?
Well, we'd love to get there, where, if you're purchasing a home, having a true understanding of what you're buying, and maybe being able to assess to see, what is the total cost of ownership going to be over a period of time owning this particular property.
Is that a service you guys provide yet?
Not yet. Today we're really focused on the current homeowner, but we're looking to get towards the place where a property, our Homeprint, is transferable from one homeowner to the other.
You don't have to answer this now, but would that be something you'd be willing to do for people? Like if they just called you up and said, hey, I saw that podcast. Can you come with me to check out this house with your data points? And obviously at a cost.
And the answer is yes. One of the things that we've looked at is home inspections, and have been in many home inspections, and then being handed a report at the end of that inspection. It's a PDF document, and yes, there's lots of great information about of the home, but I probably take that and put it into a Google Doc and maybe not look at it again. Versus if you were to use the Homeprint to catalog the entire property, put status and conditions of each of the systems in the house, we could digitize that and then create a plan for the homeowner going forward if they were the home purchaser.
Okay, so again, knowing all that data, it's a natural progression into sustainability. Energy is getting more expensive. That's again, you got these data points that show you like, hey, your furnace is inefficient, it's old, you need to replace it. It's going to cost this much, but it's going to save you this much down the road. Paired with what else?
Really, yeah. So if we look at all of the systems data, the construction and build information out of the property, and we can understand the ages of those properties and then the status and condition, but also look at utility usage. We can really understand how a home is performing and then potentially create a rating system for that home. So a homeowner can understand where it's at in terms of its energy efficiency and maybe compare that to other properties that might be similar to theirs.
You told me yesterday some very exciting news about something called the Green Button Initiative. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the green button is it's a really interesting initiative, and essentially, in a nutshell, it's the ability for homeowners to request their utility data and pass it on to a third party like Homeprint. And what we do with that data is provide you with a dashboard that gives you a breakdown of all of your utility spend and usage in one place. So if we look at utilities today, I've got to log into each of my utility providers, but there's no way for me to correlate my water consumption and my electricity in the same place and see how turning a tap on might have cost me money. It also provides the ability for third parties to look at utility usage data and maybe correct some behaviors that people might have to save them a couple of dollars. Run your washing machine at this time instead of this time.
So you told me something that kind of blew my mind. Up until November, access for homeowners to utility data was not a thing.
That's correct. It was only available on an individual basis. So you could still log into the utility company, but no way to pull it out and look at that data and maybe see that on another interface that would provide better insights.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what led to that change?
I think there's a big push for transparency from the government level, and they're doing some really great things with data. And they understand the need that if we're not sharing this data, we can't make better data-driven decisions. So it's really the ability for consumers to get a handle on this information and actually make sense of data. Data is great, but you still need a way to consume it and get insights out of it. And setting the home on a pathway to being affordable, healthy, and sustainable. So we've got a large housing stock that is in dire need of retrofit, and the government's doing great work to offer incentives and programs to make that happen. It is a bit of a cumbersome process for the homeowner. Back to the property data and the use of the utility data and the building construction data. Our thoughts are that we can create a pathway for homeowners based on the current status of the home and where they need to go without having somebody to come into the property, do a major assessment. We can use the property data to instantly make those recommendations, ultimately making that home more sustainable, energy efficient, and affordable for the homeowner.
How long's Homeprint been a thing?
We've been working on Homeprint. The initial concept was in 2015. I started a company called Homicity. We built a national property search engine and eventually pivoted to B2B SaaS. So we have a platform that we power real estate franchises across Canada with. And it was always meant to be a part of our original platform. And then about 2 years ago, it was just, staring at us in the eyes, and it was now or never. So we really feel like we're hitting this at the right time, bringing it to the market to homeowners at just a pivotal time in housing.
When it comes to the building and construction data, what has been the big glaring, has there been anything interesting that you've learned since doing this about the way, specifically the way homes in Canada are built and constructed?
That's a great question. Being in my business partner, Jody Lavoie, he's been a realtor for about the same amount of time. I've been a mortgage broker about 20 years. And if there's anything that we've seen over the years is that homes that were built 40 years ago still have the original windows, or maybe they've been updated once, but there's a large part of the housing stock that hasn't been built in a way that's been sustainable for a long period of time. And that was a result of different construction and build methods that maybe weren't available at that time. But there's a massive part of the building stock that does need to move towards a more sustainable future. So the notion of building passive homes and providing a better quality product for people to purchase, to me makes more sense. And the risk that we face is that properties that get built today are going to have the same status in 20 or 30 years from now, where a quality product wasn't built and it wasn't approached from a sustainable perspective. I challenge municipalities to say, why aren't you forcing companies to build sustainable homes? It's great to put people in houses.
Or even just raising the building code standard.
Couldn't agree more. If there's anything that we've realized, is that homeowners are completely blind about their property. They don't know how much it's worth. They don't know many warranties that have maybe been attached to it previously from a previous homeowner. They don't know what they're really spending on their utilities as a whole. They've got to do a lot of accounting work on the back end to really figure out these costs. We're really blind about everything in the house, and the data can empower the homeowner.
That's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
That also doesn't make sense to me, because that's arguably one of the biggest purchases you're ever going to make.
That's right.
And you don't know anything about it as a homeowner. That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once you've finished a transaction, there's a ton of data that's passing between the insurance company, the mortgage company, the real estate company, and after the purchase, the homeowner is left with really nothing to move forward. And that's really why we've built this platform, that when you've purchased a home, we can load up all of this data and put you on a path for success.
How was that turned out for, empowering people with that information when it comes to insurance companies and stuff like that? Like, it kind of holds them a little bit more transparent too,
Well, of course, and I think there's an opportunity for, if you think about insurance companies, to empower homeowners with their data, because then they can understand it and they can be put on a path for a home, as an example, a home maintenance plan. So what does that do? It reduces risk around the property for the insurer, so that the chances of there something catastrophic happening to that home is probably less, because that homeowner is conscious of the things that they need to do and take care of around that
and
property.
then there's not a slap on treatment for the home from the insurer, right?
Yeah. That's right. And there's also opportunities for homeowners to understand some of the things that they could do to their property to potentially lower their insurance policy cost. Put in new windows, and you're going to, you're keeping your home up to date, and you're reducing the risk of the homeowner. So it says to the insurer, this person's taking care of their home.
I mean, that's due diligence to a on steroids, right? Like, before you make a purchase.
That's right. And, if you were to think about using Homeprint as a product as a pre-home inspection, right, there's many more data points that we could load up into the property, so that a potential home buyer, not just somebody who said, I'd like to buy this home, I'm going to call up my home inspector to have them come in and do an inspection, doing a pre-home inspection that the listing agent could then present and say, hey, here's more information. The roof was done 5 years ago and there's a 20-year warranty, and this is the company who did it, and here's the contact information, right? Having that, it's a lot more handy than just having that information in a shoebox, which is the best I ever got when we purchased our home, or one of them.
You do that for cars too?
We've looked at the car industry, and funnily enough, had a recent conversation with a friend of mine who, we were talking about Homeprint and what we're doing, and he's like, I've been able to sell all of my cars for more dollars because I had a record of every maintenance piece that's ever been done to my car, so that the buyer, they know what they're buying. And there are some cool companies. I believe there's one called Carport that is essentially allowing you to save and store all of your maintenance records for your car, but you own the data. I've had problems with dealerships in the past where, we've made a complaint about something and they're like, oh no, we don't see that. And then I go find my paperwork and say, here it is.
Let's talk about Peterborough.
So
when you introduced yourself 2 weeks ago, you mentioned some municipality initiative happening with some land development, or
recently
housing developments.
The city of Peterborough put out an RFP for a platform that could deliver energy efficiency programs.
My apologies. What's an RFP?
What does this stand for? Shit. For
Couldn't let you get away with it.
requisition, no, a request for proposal.
Okay.
Request for proposal. So there was an RP from Peterborough, and essentially they were looking for a platform to deliver their new home energy efficiency program, putting homeowners on a path to retrofit their property. And we are going through the process to apply for this grant. Hopefully we get it.
Homeprint is?
Homeprint is.
Amazing.
That's
okay.
right. You know, and interestingly enough, you know, we look at property data and property history, and if you were to think about maybe a home that you purchased and 5 years ago, there was an energy efficiency grant that home took advantage of. They put in some new windows. You still don't have that data as the new homeowner because it gets lost. So, you know, we're taking a different approach to providing this to a municipality that they can deliver to all of their homeowners, and homeowners could instantly find out what grants I'm applicable to, because some of these are very municipally based.
Yeah.
You know, and other things could be streamlined from a municipal process if the homeowner had access to this platform. Think about things like applying for a permit, paying your property taxes, you know, and applying for these grants. And it doesn't get lost with the home or that particular homeowner. It gets transferred to that next homeowner. You know, I think, you know, we've got some lofty goals here in Canada when it comes to a sustainable future, and us meeting some goals with greenhouse gas reductions. And we really believe that the only way that this is going to be possible is that we empower homeowners with information and data and put them on a path. And it's got to be an easy button. It's got to be a simple process for homeowners. And unless we're putting this information in the hands of these property owners, that it's going to be very difficult to meet those standards that we're trying to set here, or reducing those greenhouse gases. How is it actually going to happen? It's, you know, they're lofty goals, but you know, you've got to put the mass people on a program to get them there. So we believe that Homeprint is the tool to be able to do that. Okay.
Let's talk about Homeprint itself. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so Homeprint, we built this dashboard so you throw all of your information in.
A dashboard, an app?
So right now it's a web platform.
Okay.
It is fully mobile responsive. Today you can save it to your home screen. It acts exactly like an app. You would never know that it was a website.
It's kind of like a plugin.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, you know, it's your home's dashboard. Funnily enough, we were talking about cars just recently. Your car tells you how fast you're going, how much gas you have, what your miles per gallon is, maybe when you need an oil change next. You don't have this for your home, your largest asset. You know, we track our heart rate. We track everything in our life on our phone, but we have this massive asset that we're not tracking whatsoever, or have a place to just look it up and go, how much is my house worth? How's it performing today? So we built some really handy tools inside the Homeprint for homeowners to save its information. You know, of course, at its core is the building construction details and the property systems. Secondly is document storage. So we've broken down every type of document you could possibly think of. So it's really easy to pull it up. It could be associated to a particular project in a house. If it was associated to a specific area in your house, you could say, this document's for my kitchen. So documents is really handy. You know, 20 years in the mortgage business, I can tell you that people lose their documents so quickly. Even things like important things like your property survey is just one that a homeowner should really have, or a title insurance policy, or, you know, these types of things. So we thought that was a really key component to the platform. And as we're building out the platform, it's definitely not fully finished at the moment. You know, we've been building these little blocks that make up the whole Homeprint. But we did look at your home's inventory. So it's a great way to store all of the things that are valuable in your home, but also your appliances, where you can plug in where you purchased it, when you purchased it, what the warranty is, and it'll send you a warranty reminder to say, hey, Mick, how's your fridge, you know, working? Is everything okay? Your warranty is going to be up in 6 months. We are looking at some insurance products, so you could extend some of those warranties. That'll be really handy for homeowners. But having all of your inventory in one place is great, especially if you were ever to have a fire or a flood and you were to lose some of those things. You would actually have, if it went up in flames and it just disappeared, and you didn't have a receipt, it would then be, stored digitally. So you could say to your insurance company, well, actually, here it is. I've got pictures, I've got receipts and warranties and serial numbers. It's all loaded up. So that's super handy. We built an insurance component as well, so you can save all of your home insurance information. And on the insurance front, we are looking at automating the insurance process. And the advantage of the Homeprint is that we're saving and storing all of your home's data and information. But when you want to go get a quote for a home insurance, you're filling out a lengthy application. So now you're not going to have to do that. And we could auto shop your insurance every single year to ensure that you're getting the best deal, best coverage. So that's going to be a huge advantage for homeowners and help them save.
All right. I got a bit of a cheeky question here.
Yeah.
So data, people's personal data needs to be protected. The property data as well. How does Homeprint go about doing that?
Great question. So when we look at the data, we look at there's two types of data. There's data that belongs to this home. It's got a concrete foundation, right? It's got these windows. This belongs to the property. Anything that is personal to the homeowner, that is owned by the homeowner. So if the Homeprint was ever transferred to the next homeowner, the property data will get transferred. Anything that belongs to the homeowner specifically, that's going to stay with the homeowner.
What would that be specifically?
Of course, like any personal documents that they would save and store. Any communication that might have happened between parties in the past. Let's say you're talking to a contractor or an insurance company. So anything like that. Would be owned by the homeowner. But our privacy policy is certainly something that we're working on our lawyers with to ensure that we're protecting homeowners and their information is owned by them.
Yeah,
it's very important. Yeah, and a couple other components we're building. I think I mentioned it was areas. So the ability for you to save, your kitchen as an area, your living room, and we allow you to plug in all of the area's dimensions. Its ceiling height, its windows, the window dimensions, your paint colors, your wallpaper that you might have put in there, which is really handy. And we look at this actually as a sustainable approach to providing information to contractors who might want to come in to give a quote to put in a new window. You don't need a window company to get in a car, drive to your property, give you an assessment. We could feed that data directly to a contractor ahead of time to be able to give a quote. Which could be a really interesting way about approaching, retrofits that are going to get done around your property.
Does the platform include, or does the data, well, I guess it can, do you guys find people doing, those 360 video tours, those virtual tours through the homes where you can actually measure, Matterport, I think it's called?
Yeah, Matterport.
They do the dollhouse floor plans for you. Do you have that as a service or a suggestion, like, hey, do this before and after you renovate an area in your house, just to have, like, obviously you can just, it doesn't matter, right? You can have it on paper or you can have it on video. Both ways it would be kind of cool. Is that a thing that people are doing?
We're not doing it today, but I think it could be something interesting, being able to have a view inside your property. I think it's more interesting from a real-time perspective. So if you had cameras in your home, I want to have a peek in my living room to make sure, if I'm away, is everything safe in my property?
Interesting.
I think, there's that, but, there's a lot of great things happening around AI at the moment. And, the ability to, snap a picture of your living room and, say, give me 20 suggestions on what it could look like, this style, this color, and then maybe hand that off to a contractor to say, hey, here's my living room. I want to do a remodel. What would that look like for me?
This is just a question for me. So when it does come for, like you were talking about before, like given data to contractors when they come in for renovations or retrofits and stuff like that, is that something you guys do, or is that something like the homeowner will reach out and be like, hey, we're looking at a retrofit, we're talking to this contractor, can you send them, like, how does that process go? Like, do you just send that straight off, or do you
Yeah, I think we haven't built out our projects component to the platform. We've designed it all, but we look at projects as things that are to do and things that have been done in the past. So your past projects are going to do a couple of things that, save and store its information, of course, save it to your areas, attach any documents, which is really handy. But then there's also the projects to do. And there's a couple interesting things there. One, if you were to look at, a project that you need to do in your house, we could maybe tell you what would the increased value of your property be if you were to go and do that. Could it reduce your insurance policy? Make your house more energy efficient? These sites sort of
risk assessment, all that stuff. Yeah,
you got it exactly. And then when it comes to a project that I'm interested in doing, is it a project that you need help with? And if you do, when we built part of one of the pieces of technology that we built internally here at Homeprint is, and we use it only internally, is called Neighborly. And Neighborly is a property database of locations and boundary files.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at, the world really doesn't need another contractor directory. There's so many of them out there, but I think a different approach to the way that people are hiring and finding contractors. And, one of the things that we realized, and me personally, is, if I'm looking for a contractor, I might call them up and say, hey, I need some work done on my house. They're like, well, I don't come to that location. I don't go that far in the city, or that's not my area. And maybe they, if it's a specific service that they may or may not offer it. If I'm looking for a carpenter, but something very specific that needs to be done, he might not have that service. So we've built out a database of all of these locations. And of course, in a neighborhood or a city, you've got addresses. So we can very easily say to a contractor, tell us what category you are, as an example, a plumber. And then, tell us all of the services that you offer.
And where.
And tell us what service areas that you service. So when a homeowner hops in the Homeprint, they can say, hey, I have this problem with my house. I need help. Who can service me? And I can provide them with a list.
So you are a
people.
contract database as well.
Well, I mean, we're going to get there.
Cool.
We're going to get there. But, we sort of see this as it's a no-brainer and a fit for contractors. And it's going to be a tool that's going to really help drive business their way, but the business that they want in the areas that they want it.
Have you dealt with homeowners to do with net zero and passive at the moment?
We are doing some work right now with an organization. I won't name any names, but we are looking at helping creating a platform using property data to looking at building construction materials and approaches to look at building analytics, building performance analytics. So if a home was built, we could look at how all of the materials that were put into this home and how it's performing in comparison to this other home that they might be looking at. This is a more of a governing body, very related to Passive House. The Passive House Canada is amazing. Yeah. Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard's doing a great job over at Passive House Canada, really leading the initiative on the Passive House approach, which is fantastic.
We're going to be getting him on the show soon too. So
he's great. So, we're really excited to look at some of this data modeling around building efficiency and, what construction approaches and materials could make an impact on building performance.
Has the idea of partnering with building companies, particularly passive or net zero building companies, specifically been a topic of interest for you guys? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that it's really interesting. The approach to passive homes, and seeing how they're performing and those particular materials that are going in is only going to lead to better research and information that we can bring to the current housing stock and approach the current housing stock with, a better approach and better materials that can make it more energy efficient.
Any last thoughts?
Mick, thanks so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure to be here, and love talking about sustainability, passive homes, energy efficiency. Super fun topic.
Thanks for coming along, man. Thanks for introducing yourself a couple of weeks ago. The phone chat yesterday got me really amped up for what you guys are doing. So we'll definitely have you on again, maybe with your partner, and till next time.
Lovely. Cheers.
you